My cat says hi too. He may make an appearance at some point during this. We are now on, and it doesn't matter if you have been here with us for the beginning of this book. You can jump in at any time. You can always go back to the start, whatever you feel best doing. This is William Lilly's Introduction to Astrology, first published in, I will never remember the year, 1647. Okay. In the year 1647, and was republished in 1852. This edition is from 1972, back during what I would consider, and I'm sure others would consider, to be the resurgence of astrology in the contemporary era, the 70s and 60s, with all the hippie movements and the like. So far, we have gone through the preface, a short biography of the life of William Lilly, in the first 3 chapters of the Introduction to Astrology, which just goes over the basics, the signs, the names of the signs, nothing too in-depth, a little bit about how they are divided into their modalities and their elements, the part of fortune, how it's calculated, and how to cast a chart, and the aspects, which I find interesting that it discusses the aspects before the houses, but maybe I just haven't looked at any modern astrology books in a little while, which is true. I would love to read from the Astrologer's Handbook by Sequoian and Acker, but again, I still worry about copyright and all of those things, but I'm sure if it was done inaudibly or something like that, it would be transformative enough and very difficult to say that I am trying to disseminate the work. But let's begin. I'm trying to remember if there's anything else. Before you drift off to sleep or whatever else, please help support the channel by giving this video a like and subscribing if you haven't already, and leave me a comment. In the last video I asked for your zodiac signs, and if you haven't shared yours with me yet, you can go ahead and do that in the comments for this video, or if you have, I wonder what else. What's your favorite planet? And we will be using the astrology term for planet, so the sun and moon are included, and you can use planets that were discovered more recently, and even the dwarf planet, the demoted planet, Pluto. So tell me what your favorite planet is, whether you're an astrologer or not. I would be curious to see what people have to say. And feel free to tell me why. Let me take some, or let me use some chapstick first. This winter has been so dry, and I'm just way too lazy about setting up a humidifier, because you have to maintain and clean them, and I just would rather not. Chapter 4. Of the 12 houses, their nature and signification. Oh, before I forget, I just posted a video for release at 7 p.m. today, the day that I'm recording this, and I'm so mad. I was reading the name of a town in England, I think it's a town, and I was trying to, and I did apologize in there. I did apologize for not knowing how to pronounce British places, and I cannot remember what page it was on, but it was that town spelled Leicester, I think, and it looks like it could be pronounced Leicester or Leicester. Well, that doesn't make sense, but Leicester, but no. I just looked it up and apparently it's Leicester. I'm not mad at myself, I'm mad at the English. Just like my forefathers. Anyway, let's get into it. As before, we have said there are 12 signs and also 12 houses of heaven. So now we are come to relate the nature of these 12 houses, the exact knowledge of which is so requisite that he who learns the nature of the planets and signs without exact judgment of the houses is like an improvident man that furnishes himself with a variety of household stuff, having no place wherein to bestow them. I love the way that things are phrased. There's so much humor to be found in this text, both from the publisher and the man himself, though the way that this is written, the way things are spelled, it deviates from the epitaph that he shared in the life of William Lilly. And I think that that's the reason for the little asterisk and note at the end, in which Zadkiel states, "I have retained the exact orthography of this epistle, which is a curious and interesting remnant of our author's day." And I haven't looked up what orthography means, but I imagine that that is referring to the way that things are said or spelled, like how the word lie, like a liar, someone who is lying, the word lie is spelled L-Y-E, and I remember macrocosm had a E at the end. Stars is spelled S-T-A-R-R-E-S. So I imagine that in order to make this more easily digestible for those in the 18th century, that was part of the work that Zadkiel used, in addition to updating things to be more astronomically accurate, like including Herschel or Uranus. There is nothing appertaining to the life of man in this world which, in one way or other, hath no relation to one of the 12 houses of heaven. And as the 12 signs are appropriate to the particular members of man's body, and that he means that literally because of the way that astrology is employed, so also do the 12 houses represent not only the several parts of man, but his actions, quality of life, and living. And the curiosity and judgment of our forefathers in astrology was such that they have allotted to every house a particular signification, And so distinguished human accidents, which refers to the events of life generally, throughout the whole 12 houses. He that understands the questions appertaining to each of them shall not want sufficient grounds whereon to judge or give a rational answer upon any contingent accident and success thereof. Of the first house and its signification. The first house contains all that part of heaven from the line where the figure 1 stands unto the figure 2, which that might be referring to the chart. Yes, that is referring to the chart that we saw here. So the first house is, it'll be opposite for you the way that this is filmed, but the first house is this very first wedge right here, it starts at the eastern horizon and dips below it and ends with the second house. I will mark this just in case we need to go back to it. It is 1/3 of the distance between the horizon and meridian below the Earth. It has significations. It has signification of the life of man, of the stature, color, complexion, form, and shape of him, that propounds the question or is born in eclipses and great conjunctions, and upon the sun his annual ingress into Aries. It signifies the common people or general state of that kingdom where the figure is erected. I think that is referring to the way that the first house applies to both people and places. And as it is the first house, it represents the head and face of man, so that if either Saturn or Mars be in this house, either at the time of a question or at the time of birth, you may observe some blemish in the face. This is verified in the nativity of Lord Brogham, who was born with Saturn ascending in Scorpio. He has a very great natural defect in the face, a nervous catching of the muscles of the mouth, etc. Wow. Or in that member appropriated to the sign that is then upon the cusp of the house. So, in other words, if Aries is the ascendant and you have Saturn or Mars there, then it will definitely be on the face. He writes, the mark, mole, or scar is without fail in the head or face. So it's funny that he mentions the face for Lord Brogham. I'm just going to call him that. I don't know if it's accurate or not. Saturn ascending in Scorpio, and Scorpio rules the genitals. So, who knows? And if few degrees of the sign ascend, the mark is in the upper part of the head. If the middle of the sign be on the cusp, the mole, mark, or scar is in the middle of the face or near it. If the latter degrees ascend, the face is blemished near the chin, towards the neck. This I have found true in hundreds of examples. of colors, it hath the white, that is, if a planet be in this house that has signification of white, the complexion of the party is more pale or wan. Is it wan or wan? I haven't seen that word in a long time. Or if you inquire after the color of the clothes of any man, if his signifactor be in the first house, and in a sign corresponding, the party's apparel is white or gray, or somewhat near that color. So, also if the question be regarding cattle, as it naturally would be, when their signifactors are found in this house, it denotes them to be of that color or near it. The house is masculine. The consignifactors of this house are Aries and Saturn. For as this house is the first house, so is Aries the first sign, and Saturn the first of the planets. That's interesting that it's referred to as the first of the planets, because it is the furthest away, the furthest known planet at this time that this was written. And therefore, when Saturn is but moderately well fortified in this house, and in any benevolent aspect of Jupiter, Venus, Sun, or Moon, it promises a good, sober constitution of body and usually long life. Mercury doth also joy in this house because it represents the head and the tongue, fancy, and memory. When he is well dignified and posited in this house, he produces good orators. Lord Brougham, who's one of the best orators of the age, was born with Mercury just rising. It is called the ascendant because when the sun and planets come to the cusp of the house, they ascend or then rise and are visible in our horizon. Questions concerning the second house. From this house is required judgment concerning the estate or fortune of him that asks the question, of his wealth, of property, of all movable goods, money lent, of profit or gain, loss or damage. In suits of law, it signifies a man's friends or assistants. In private duels, the querent's second. In an eclipse or great conjunction, the poverty or wealth of the people. In the sun, his entrance into Aries, it represents the ammunition, allies, and support the Commonwealth shall have. It imports their magazines. They had guns in the... Yeah, they had guns by that point. It represents in man the neck and hinder part of it towards the shoulders, of colors, the green. It is a feminine house and succeedent. The second house says succeedent here because it succeeds the first angle. And as we learned, the succeedent house is second in power to the angular houses. The same can be said for the fifth house as it succeeds the fourth, but we will get there. It has consignifactors, Jupiter and Taurus, for if Jupiter be placed in this house or be lord hereof, it is an argument of an estate or fortune. Sun and Mars are never well placed in this house. Either of them show dispersion of substance, according to the capacity and quality of him that is either born or asks the question. The moon in this house, if in good aspect to Jupiter, gives the native wealth. The Duke of Wellington had moon in this house in a trine to Jupiter in the 10th. The third house, a cadent house, one of the weaker houses, has signification of brethren, sisters, cousins, or kindred, neighbors, small journeys or inland journeys, often removing from one place to another, Epistles, letters, rumors, messengers. It rules the shoulders, arms, hands, and fingers. I didn't mean to lose that page, but oh well. You get the idea. Of colors, it governs the red and yellow or sorrel color. It has consignifactors Gemini and Mars, which is one reason why Mars in this house, unless joined with Saturn, is not very fortunate. It is a cadent house and is the joy of the moon, for if she be posited therein, especially in a movable sign, it is an argument of much travel, trotting and trudging, or of being seldom quiet. The house is masculine. Do you ever feel as if you're powered by a motor? The ADHD girlies get it. The fourth house gives judgment of fathers in general, or ever of his father that inquires, or that is born, of lands, houses, tenements, inheritance, tillage of the earth, treasures hidden, the determination or end of anything, towns, cities, or castles, besieged or not besieged, all ancient dwellings, gardens, fields, pastures, orchards, the quality and nature of the grounds one purchases, whether vineyards, cornfields, and the like, and shows whether the ground be woody, stony, or barren. The sign of the fourth denotes the town, the lord thereof, the governor. This alludes to questions of sieges, which were too frequent in the land of the author's time. It rules the breast and lungs, and of colors the red. Its consignifactors are Cancer and the Sun. We call it the angle of the earth, or Imam Quelli. It is feminine and the north angle. In nativities or questions, this fourth house represents fathers. So does the Sun by day and Saturn by night. Yet if the Sun be here placed, he is not ill, but rather shows the father to be of a noble disposition. The fifth house. By this house we judge of children, of ambassadors, of the state of woman with child, of banquets, of alehouses, taverns, plays, messengers or ancients, messengers or agents for republics, of the wealth of the father, the ammunition of a town besieged, if the woman with child shall bring forth male or female, or the health or sickness of his son or daughter that asks the question. It rules the stomach, liver, heart, sides, and back, and is masculine. Of colors, black and white or honey color, and is a succident house. I still don't know if I want to pronounce it succeedent or succident. Its consignifactors are Leo and Venus, who does joy in this house. In regard, it is the house of pleasure, delight, and merriment. It is wholly unfortunate by Mars or Saturn, and they therein show disobedient children and the untoward. I believe that the fifth house is also the house of gambling, if I remember correctly. The sixth house. It concerns men and maidservants, galley slaves, hogs, sheep, goats, hares, conies, all manner of lesser cattle, and profit or loss got thereby, sickness, its quality and cause, the principal humor offending, curable or not curable, whether the disease be short or long, day laborers, tenants, farmers, shepherds, hog herds, neatherds, warreners, and it signifies uncles or the father's brothers and sisters. It rules the inferior part of the belly and intestines, even to the rectum. The house is a feminine and cadent house, unfortunate as having no aspect to the ascendant. Of colors, black. Mars rejoices in this house, but its consignifactors are the sign Virgo and planet Mercury. We usually find that Mars and Venus in conjunction in this house are arguments of a good physician. This alludes to questions regarding sickness, and by no means to nativities. So I wonder if this is referring to when you do a horary chart and you're concerned about illness. I don't know. I don't know what that means. The 7th house. It gives judgment of marriage and describes the person inquired after, whether it be a man or woman, all manner of love questions or public enemies, the defendant in a lawsuit, in war, the opposing army. Wait, did I just become Minnesotan when I said that? In war, the opposing In war, the opposing party. All quarrels, duels, lawsuits. In astrology, the artist himself. In physic, the physician. Thieves and thefts, the person stealing, whether man or woman. Wives, sweethearts, their shape, description, condition, nobly or ignobly born. In an annual ingress, whether war or peace may be expected. Of victory, who overcomes and who is worsted, fugitives or runaways, banished or outlawed men. It has consignifactors Libra and the moon. Saturn or Mars, unfortunate herein, show ill in marriage. We always find that Saturn, Mars, or Uranus in this house are causes of ill fortune in marriage, or the married state in nativities. Let them be aspected how they will, and in questions we have no opinion of them, though ever so strongly dignified. The Duke of Wellington had both Saturn and Mars in the 7th, and was unfortunate in marriage. Something that I notice about people with Saturn in the 7th house is that they seem to view relationships as a struggle, or it just happens that relationships tend to be a struggle. If Mars is there, then it definitely is going to be that way. Mars in the 7th could indicate some violence between the partners, whether it's directed at the person in question or at their partner. It's the kind of situation where a person has been raised in a household, typically, where love and pain or punishment are often intertwined. When I see Saturn when I see Uranus in the 7th house, it often means chaotic, short-term relationships or unusual partnerships of some kind. When I see Neptune in the 7th house, it often indicates that they tend to be with partners who have some sort of substance issue or otherwise some form of escapism, or they often end up in relationships that aren't what they seem. Neptune can be a deceptive planet, so there could be a lot of falsehoods in that. The 7th house is really not a house where you want to have these more difficult planets, but it doesn't mean that you're doomed forever. but from what I have seen, it does look like, in many cases, if you have Saturn, especially in the 7th house, Saturn, Neptune, or Uranus, it will often show a lot of disappointment in relationships. Of color, back to the 7th house. Well, back to the description of the 7th house. Of color, a dark black. It rules the haunches and the navel, so the buttocks, is called the angle of the west and is masculine. The 8th house. The estate of men deceased, death, its quality and nature, the wills, legacies, and testaments of men deceased, dowry of the wife, portion of the maid, whether it be much or little, easy to be attained or with difficulty. In duels, it represents the adversary's second. In lawsuits, the defendant's friends. What kind of death a man shall die? It signifies fear and anguish of mind. This alludes to the signifactor of the querent being placed in the 8th house. You might hear my radiators turning on at the moment. Also, who shall be heir to the deceased? It rules the privy parts. Of colors, the green and black. Of signs, it has Scorpio for consignifactor and Saturn. The hemorrhoids, the stone, which I think is kidney stones or gallstones. Stranguary. The stranguary? What is that? No, let's take a look. What is the stranguary? I will not be looking at. I refuse to look at the AI overview. Dictionary. I hope you don't mind the church bells either. Thankfully, it is 6, so it might be one of the longer ones. I hope you don't mind. Strangery. A condition caused by blockage or irritation at the base of the bladder, resulting in severe pain and a strong desire to urinate. Produced by spasmodic muscular contraction of the urethra and bladder. So it looks like it might not be related to like UTIs necessarily, but maybe, I don't know. Anyway, the hemorrhoids, the stone, the stranguary, and bladder are ruled by this house, also poisons. It is a succedent house and feminine. The 9th house. By this house we give judgment of voyages or long journeys, of beyond seas, of religious men or clergy of any kind, whether bishops or inferior ministers. Dreams, visions, foreign countries, books, learning, church livings or benefices, and of the kindred of one's wife or husband. I didn't know dreams and visions were in the 9th house. Usually today that's associated with the 12th house. Of colors, or dreams in the sense of long-term goals, the 11th house. Of colors, it has the green and white. Of man's body, it rules the fundament, the hips and thighs, Jupiter and Mars are consignifactors of this house, for if Jupiter be herein placed, it naturally signifies a devout man in his religion, or one modestly given. I have often observed when the dragon's tail or the south node, Saturn or Mars have been unfortunately placed in this house, the querent has either been little better than an atheist or a desperate sectarian. But don't worry though, because this merely alludes to horary questions and can have no kind of influence this way, these things being at most symbols of a good or bad man. For in nativities, the mind is influenced by the moon and Mercury only. The error of confounding these two branches of the science, nativities, in which the planets are causes under God of events, and horary, in which they are only signs of the events, has been the chief means of bringing this sublime science into disrepute. This error appears to have risen from the low state and condition of astronomy in the Middle Ages, when, even as late as the days of Charles II, Dr. Gode, his physician, assures us that the astronomers could not calculate an opposition of the planets Jupiter and Saturn nearer than a week. How, then, can it be expected that the judgments of astrologers should have always been correct, when the very data on which they depended were often erroneous? So true, my guy. The sun rejoices to be in this house, which is masculine and cadent. The 10th house. Commonly, it personates kings, princes, dukes, earls, judges, prime officers, commanders-in-chief, whether in armies or towns, all sorts of magistracy, interesting form of that word, all sorts of magistracy and officers in authority, also mothers, honor, preferment, dignity, office, lawyers, professions or trade. Going back to the mothers being included in the 10th house, that's also interesting because in contemporary astrology the houses are flipped. Usually the 4th house signifies the mother because of the sign Cancer, I think, and a 10th house signifies the father because of Saturn and Capricorn. That's interesting. Honor, preferment, dignity, office, lawyers, professions or trade. It also signifies kingdoms, empires, dukedoms, counties. It has of colors red or white and rules the knees and thighs. It is called the medium coeli or midheaven and is feminine. Its consignifactors are Capricorn and Mars. Either Jupiter or the Sun are very fortunate in this house, especially when they are placed together. Saturn or the South Node usually deny honor as to persons of quality, and to the vulgar, little prosperity in profession or trade. Oof. Nowadays, the 10th house does have a lot more to do with the career profession of the person involved in the natal chart. And also can indicate whether they are on a more, in the end it represents their more professional image. The 11th house. It does naturally represent friends and friendship, hope, trust, confidence, the praise or dispraise of anyone, the fidelity or falseness of friends. As to kings, it personates their favorites, counselors, servants, their associates or allies, their money. Exchequer, or treasure. In war, ammunition, and soldiery, it represents courtiers, etc. A can't remember if it's pronounced courtier or courtier. In a commonwealth governed by a few of the nobles and commons, it personates their assistants in council, as in London, the 10th house represents the Lord Mayor, the 11th the Common Council, the Ascendant, the generality of the commoners of the said city. Of members, it rules the legs and the ankles. Like how it's spelled ANCLES. Of colors, saffron or yellow. It has the Sun and Aquarius for consignifactors. Jupiter especially rejoices in this house. It is a succedent house and masculine, and in virtue is nearly equivalent either to the 7th or 4th house. And lastly, the 12th house. It has signification of private enemies, great cattle or horses, oxen, elephants, and the like, sorrow, tribulation, imprisonment, all manner of affliction, self-undoing or self-sabotage, etc. That's amazing. That's amazing. This is great. This is so good. Yeah, the 12th house, the house of the people who secretly hate you, the sorrows, the tribulations, being incarcerated or institutionalized, and the many ways that we get in our own way, and also horses and other large animals. And of such men as maliciously undermine their neighbors or inform secretly against them. It has consignifactors Pisces and Venus. Saturn does much delight in that house, for he is naturally the author of mischief. It rules in man's body the feet. In color, it represents the green. It is a cadent house and feminine. This is the true character of the several houses according to the Ptolemaic doctrine and the experience I have had myself for many years. I don't know what this guy's about to say, but I must confess the Arabians have made several other divisions of the houses, but I could never in my practice find any verity in them. Therefore, I will say nothing of them. Okay. Chapter 5. Let me take a look and see what Chapter 5 and 6 look like. Oh, 6 is very short, so I will read the next 2 chapters. Chapter 5 of Saturn and his signification. He is the supremest or highest of all the planets, and is placed between Jupiter and the firmament. He is not very bright or glorious, nor does he twinkle or sparkle, but is of a pale or wan ashy color, slow in motion, finishing his course through the 12 signs of the zodiac in 29 years, 167 days, and 5 hours, or around that amount. His mean motion is 2 minutes and 1 second. His diurnal motion is sometimes 3, 4, 5, or 6 minutes, seldom more. His greatest north latitude from the ecliptic is 2 degrees 48 minutes. His greatest south latitude is 2 degrees 49 minutes. In the zodiac, he has 2 of the 12 signs for his houses, that being Capricorn, his night house, Aquarius, his day house. He is exalted in Libra, receives his fall in Aries, and rejoices in the sign Aquarius. He governs the airy triplicity by day, which is composed of Gemini, Libra, and Aquarius. If in any question he be in any degree wherein he has a term, he cannot be said to be peregrine or void of essential dignities, or if he be in any of those degrees allotted him for his face or decant, he cannot then be said to be peregrine. Understand this in all the other planets. I guess that is saying that the same can be said for different planets. Apparently, in the table for essential dignities, it goes into more detail here. Saturn continues retrograde 140 days, is 5 days in his first stage before retrogradation, and so many in his second station before becoming direct. He is cold and dry, being far removed from the sun, melancholy, earthy, masculine, and the greater infortunate, author of solitariness, malevolent, and so on. When well dignified, he is profound in imagination, in his acts severe, in words reserved, in speaking and giving very spare, in labor patient, in arguing or disputing grave, in obtaining the goods of this life studious and solicitous, studious and solicitous, in all manner of actions austere. By these descriptions is meant that persons signified in horary questions by this planet are of such a character. And if he influenced the native by being in the ascendant at the time of birth, it applies also in nativities. So this is particularly describing the nature of a person that one may be interacting with, unless it's in the first house. Then it is about the individual getting the natal reading. When ill-dignified, he is envious, covetous, jealous, and mistrustful, timorous, sordid, outwardly dissembling, sluggish, suspicious, stubborn, a contemner of women, a liar, malicious, murmuring, never contented, and ever repining. Corporature. Most part of his body cold and dry, of a middle stature, his complexion pale, swarthy, or muddy, his eyes little and black, looking downward, a broad forehead, black or sad hair, and it hard or rugged, great ears, hanging, lowering eyebrows, thick lips and nose, a rare or thin beard, a lumpish, unpleasant countenance, either holding his head forward or stooping, his shoulders broad and large, and many times crooked, his belly somewhat short and lank, his thighs spare, lean, and not long. God, oh, he keeps going. His knees and feet ill-made, and frequently striking against each other with a shuffling gait. My mom and I just rewatched Best in Show from, I think it was released in the year 2000. The guy played by Eugene Levy literally has 2 left feet. This could be describing him. Actually, a lot of this could be describing Eugene Levy, and that's really funny. Because he's probably a good guy. I don't know. Who knows? I don't. Saturn, Oriental. You must observe if Saturn be Oriental of the Sun. The stature is more short, but decent and well composed. Saturn, Occidental. The man is more black and lean, and fewer hairs, and again, if he wants latitude, the body is more lean. If he have great latitude, the body is more fat or fleshy. So I guess if he's tall or short. If the latitude be south, more fleshy but quick in motion. If north, hairy and much flesh. Saturn in his first station, a little fat. in his second station, fat, ill-favored bodies and weak, and this observed constantly in all the other planets. Jesus God. You can't see me, but my head is just in my hand right now. Quality of men, or mankind, people generally. In general, Saturn signifies husbandmen, clowns, beggars, day laborers, old men, fathers, the grandfather, monks, Jesuits, sectarians, employment, couriers, night farmers, miners underground, tinners, potters, broom men, plumbers, brickmakers, maltsters, chimney sweepers, sextons of churches, bearers of corpses, scavengers, hostlers, colliers, carters, gardeners, ditchers, chandlers, dyers of black cloth, and herdsmen, shepherds, or cowkeepers. Sicknesses. All impediments in the right ear or teeth. All quartan agues. All quartan agues. Proceeding from cold, dry, and melancholy distempers, leprosies, consumptions, black jaundice, palsies, tremblings, vain fears, fantasies, dropsy, the hand and foot gout, apoplexies, too much flux of the hemorrhoids, and ruptures. If in Scorpio or Leo, in any ill aspect with Venus. Orb. His orb is 9 degrees before or after, that is, his influence begins to work when either he applies or any planet applies to him, and is within the half of 9 degrees added to the half of that planet's orb, and continues in force until he is separate and equal distance. The orb is basically, hopefully we'll be able to see some charts later, but the orb is just like how much leeway there is in determining whether an aspect exists or not between two planets. Years. The greatest years he signifies is 465. I wonder where that comes from. His greater 57, his medium years 43 and a half, his least 30. Oh, the meaning whereof is this. Admit we frame a new building, erect a town or city or a family or a principality, is begun when Saturn is essentially or occidentally strong. The astrologer may probably conjecture the family, principality, etc. may continue 465 years in honor and otherwise, and so on, without any sensible alteration. As to age, he relates to decrepit old men, fathers and grandfathers, the like in plants, trees, and all living creatures. Places. He delights in deserts, woods, obscure valleys, caves, dens, holes, mountains, or where men have been buried, churchyards, etc., ruinous buildings, coal mines, sinks, dirty and stinking places, houses of office, isn't that the same thing? Etc. Countries. Late authors say he rules over Bavaria, Saxony, Styria, Romandiola, Ravenna, Constantia, and Ingolstadt. Chapter 6 of the planet Jupiter and his signification. Jupiter is placed next to Saturn. He is the greatest in appearance to our eyes of all the planets, aside from the Sun, Moon, and Venus. In his color, he is bright, clear, and of an azure hue. In his motion, he exceeds Saturn, finishing his course through the 12 signs in 14 years, 314 days, and 12 hours. His middle motion is 4 minutes, 52 seconds. His greatest north latitude is 1 degrees and 38 minutes. His greatest south latitude is 1 degree, 40 minutes. He is retrograde about 120 days, is 5 days in his first station before retrogradation, and 4 days stationary before direction. Nature. He is a masculine planet, temperately hot and moist, and the greater fortune, author of temperance, modesty, sobriety, and justice. Manners and actions when well placed. Then he is magnanimous, yes. Then he is magnanimous, faithful, bashful, aspiring in an honorable way at high matters. In all his actions, a lover of fair dealing, desiring to benefit all men, doing glorious actions, honorable and religious, of sweet and affable conversation, wonderfully indulgent to his wife and children, reverencing aged men, a great reliever of the poor, full of charity and godliness, liberal, hating all sordid actions, just, wise, prudent, grateful, and virtuous. Manners and actions when Jupiter is well placed. He is just, wise, prudent, grateful, and virtuous, so that when you find Jupiter the signifactor of any man in question, and well dignified, you may judge him well qualified as foresaid. But when ill dignified, when Jupiter is unfortunate, then he wastes his patrimony, suffers every one to cozen him, is hypocritically religious, tenacious and obstinate in maintaining false tenets in religion. He is ignorant, careless, nothing earning for the love of his friends, of a gross, dull capacity. Systematical, abasing himself in all companies, insinuating and stooping where no necessity is. Corporature. He signifies an upright, straight and tall stature, brown, ruddy, and lovely complexion, of an oval or long visage, and full or fleshy, high forehead, large gray eyes, hair soft and a kind of auburn brown, much beard, a large deep belly, strong proportioned thighs and legs, his feet long, being the most uncomely parts of his body. In his speech he is sober and of grave discourse. When the planet is oriental, which I'm not quite sure what oriental and occidental really mean when it comes to astrology, never really got that far for like those details, but the skin is more clear, his complexion honey color, or between a white and red, sanguine, ruddy color. Great eyes, the body more fleshy, generally some mole or scar on the right foot. When occidental, a pure and lovely complexion, the stature more short, the hair a light brown or near a dark flaxen and smooth, bald about the temple or forehead. So when you think of just think of like a very hefty, just think of a very large, round Dominican friar or monk, you know? Quality in general. He signifies judges, senators, counselors, ecclesiastical men, bishops, priests, ministers, cardinals, chancellors, doctors of the civil law, young scholars and students in a university or college, lawyers, clothiers, woolen drapers. Diseases. Pleurisy, all infirmities in the liver, apoplexies, inflammation of the lungs, palpitation and trembling of the heart, cramps, pain in the backbone, all diseases lying in the veins or ribs, and proceeding from corruption of blood, quinsys, flatulence, all putrefaction in the blood or fevers proceeding from too great abundance thereof. And places, he delights in being near altars of churches, in public conventions, synods, convocations, in places neat and sweet, in wardrobes, courts of justice, and oratories. This implies that the person inquired about in a horary question, if signified by Jupiter, this person frequents such places. His greatest years are 428, his greater 79, his mean 45, least 12. Men of middle age or of a full judgment and discretion are described by him. As far as places, Babylon, Persia, Hungary, Spain, are ruled by him. And then lastly it says, we have no opinion of the rule of the planets over different countries, but in mundane astrology the signs which rule them must be observed. And that is the end of this section of the book. I hope that you have either drifted off to sleep or that you have learned something of any value or found entertainment in some of the writings found within this book. There are many surprising, funny quips throughout, and I really appreciate it for that. And I appreciate you for being here. I think this might be the longest video I've filmed so far, so that will be very fun to edit. And again, if you are still here, please share, like, subscribe, and if you've made it this far, leave a little black heart emoji for Saturn, because Saturn needs some love. Alright, bye.